And in the winter itself, there's also a gradient between the different months. And we said that Teves is unique in that there's, so to speak, zero level of revelation of the Shemesh Havaya. And therefore, the work with the Guf, in and of itself, has a special quality even over the avoda of the Guf in the other winter months. And what was the difference is that in the other winter months, there's still a certain amount of sunshine, there's still a certain amount of Havaya, and therefore the Havaya sort of helps you and inspires you in the avoda of the Guf. Whereas in the Teves, there's like zero soul action going on, and therefore it's pure avodas Hashem with the Guf, and we're going to start to explain a little bit more about that, what that means in footnote 16. Yeah.
I'm saying, like, according to that, I shouldn't go to Verbringens on Teves.
The content of the Verbringen is for a different kind of service. It's focusing you in a different direction. What are you Verbringen about? It's not that there's not avodas Hashem. It's that the avodas Hashem is more concentrated on refining yourself and like controlling the problems with the kli, as opposed to sort of getting the kli out of the way and letting your soul shine through it. But it's just as much avodah adrab. You have to probably go to more Verbringens because it's a more difficult job. Verbringen every night. All right, so let's look, and we'll get a little bit of a top-down understanding this from a deeper Haskalah point of view. Rabbi, footnote 16. You guys have the wrong page. Here, pass this one then. And that one is going to be the next page, I guess. Yeah, I gave you the 2 pages. Okay. So this is in footnote 16.
The same page.
No, everyone got the same page? No. No. So we're saying, let's look at let's look back in the body of the text for a second. He's saying that, let's just read the last little chapter before chapter 4. He says, Ilu Chodesh Teves, when it comes to Teves, Shu Si Hakor, it's the coldest, the peak of coldness. Matzbiya al matzav shel hastara gedola kol kach. It shows and it points to a situation of such concealment, she'einu me'avshares es gilui or hanashama, that there is no ability for the light of the soul to shine at all. It's like a unique opportunity, as we were saying. Vaz ein mitzba'as avoda zichuch haguf be'emtzos gilui or hanashama. In that, how does it work out? That the work with the body is not affected through a revelation of the soul. In other words, usually, even if I'm going to work on the body, I'm going to use a little revelation from my soul to lift me up and help me engage in the work of the body. But in this month, there's no shining the light of the soul on the body to gain help with that avoda. You just have to deal with the so to speak, the kli itself. And so to understand that a little bit deeper, he says, Al Darech HaMavur, as explained in Ayin Beis, a lot deeper, he says, Beis Ofani Bizhabcha Chashuch L'Nehora. There's 2 concepts of basically turning darkness into light. The whole idea of utilizing darkness for light and transforming the darkness can be done in 2 ways. Al Yidei HaOr, O HaChoshech Mitzad Atzmo, Ayin Sham Barucha. He says basically, whether it's done through the light or through the darkness itself. So in other words, if we're going to try to get the dark thing to suddenly show its godliness, you can either do that by shining light on the dark thing, and therefore you sort of reveal its qualities, or you can see the essence of the dark thing in and of itself as something positive. And he gives a better example, like a clearer example, in this continuation of this footnote. He says, look in Lakuti Levi Yitzchak, she'inyan the guf nena min haguf, hu inyan hamtakas hagvuras b'shorshan. This is the idea of what we call sweetening the gevuras in their root. Vari hu inyan is hapcha de choshech mitzad atzmo, kavur behemshech sham. So he basically explains there that there's, if you look at the Tzimtzum, I'm trying to figure out what footnote I was actually looking for. I think that's it. Anyway, let me explain what I had in mind to explain. I think it might be coming up in another footnote. But the idea of the tzimtzum, what is the function of the tzimtzum? The tzimtzum arishon, right? Normally we think that the tzimtzum is basically there to bring about a revelation. You have to contract the light so you can see other light, right? But the reality is that the tzimtzum can also be seen as something worthy and valuable in and of itself. In other words, the tzimtzum itself is like a revelation of God. It's just that it's a revelation of God, which is, so to speak, beyond revelation. So in other words, there's two ways of understanding what's the function of darkness. Either the light is sort of there to shine light on the fact that the darkness is something positive, or the darkness itself is intrinsically positive. And this is what he's trying to say here, that the avoda of Teves is getting to a reality of the darkness which is intrinsically something good in and of itself. It doesn't need to be, so to speak, using the light in order to reveal it. Let's look further into Dalet. So he says like this. There's a story from the Frierdiker Rebbe in the name of the Tzemach Tzedek. Sipur al Baal Shem Tov, he tells a story about the Baal Shem Tov. And he says the Baal Shem Tov was famously known to love light. There's a Yom Yom that says that the Or is Gematria Raz. Raz means secret. And basically the whole secret is connected with light. And the Baal Shem Tov was wanted there to be always light, literally light and candles and things lit up all the time.
Who was this?
The Baal Shem Tov. This is a story told from the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Frierdiker Rebbe gave it over to us about the Baal Shem Tov. And he says, once upon a time, on a winter night, lo hayu talmidav maspik neros kedei lahayres beis medrash. They didn't have enough candles to light up the shul, to light up the beis medrash. And the Baal Shem Tov told them, it's a little interesting trick. He said, go to the roof and take icicles and light them. And so they did. Right? This is a Baal Shem Tov story, believe it or not. They went and they took icicles from the roof, they lit them, and the icicles were burning. Hem dalku. And the Tzemach Tzedek said on this that by the Chassidim of the Talmidim of Morenu Baal Shem Tov, afilu nero shel kerach dalku ve'iru. Even candles made out of ice could shine and bring light. So what's the idea behind this? Baal Shem Tov hara keitzad yecholim nero shel kerach ba'atzmam. He showed them how the candles of ice themselves, which is the exact opposite of light and warmth, on the contrary, they're the exact opposite of light and warmth. They didn't stop being ice, right? In other words, the idea of them stopping to be ice is that you have to do something to change the nature of the darkness in order to show its positivity. And that's like the idea of the other winter months. We're going to work with the body because we're going to sort of weaken it so that it won't stand in our way, and we're going to shine light on it and refine it so they can serve its true function, so to speak, which is to let light pass through it. In other words, there's a problem with the goof. It needs to be fixed, and therefore we're going to sort of weaken it and change its metzias, because there's something, so to speak, wrong with it, through the light, and that's normally how we sort of work out the darkness. And the darkness winds up being useful and positive in that sense. Why? Because when you have a resistance of the body, or resistance of the kli, that makes the light therefore have to work harder in order to refine it, it brings out a certain advantage in the light. That's what we say, there's a yisra or min choshech, there's an advantage of light from darkness. And what is that advantage? That the light would finds an inner drive, an inner panemius power. You need sort of makiv powers and mesiras nefesh and kabbalas ol in order to overcome this resistance. And therefore the darkness shows its usefulness because it brings out greater light. And this is what I was trying to say, admittedly failed a second ago, but I'll try again. The idea of the tzimtzum, right, which is this darkness, what is it good for, right? So normally we think of the tzimtzum as something which is very useful because it basically puts a brakes on the Or Ein Sof. And then what happens right afterwards? There's something called a bekia, right? A breakthrough, that the kav is a powerful type of light that breaks through the darkness of the tzimtzum and shines light even into the darkness. Now in order to do that, even though the kav is just a mere ray from the Or Ein Sof, but it has something going for it that the rest of the Or Ein Sof doesn't have. which is the rest of the Or Ein Sof, when it met the Tzimtzum, it met its match. It could not, it was stopped from shining. But the Kav, which is like this penimius essential part of the Or Ein Sof, the fact that it can break through the Tzimtzum, it shows up and basically reveals this penimius of the Or Ein Sof only because of the resistance. So you see that the body showed itself to be very helpful. The darkness was actually very, very good because it actually created a yisron of the Or, right? It's yisron ha'or mitoch ha'choshech. There's an advantage of light from darkness. What is that advantage? That the darkness showed us advantageous level of light, right? So that's one perush of the idea that the tzimtzum is useful, it's good, it's helpful. But there's another concept, which is what he's getting to here, which is the Teves concept. We're not involved in lights, thank you, light, for your participation, but we've got something going which is greater than light. And that is, there's a yisra or mitoch hachoshech, there's an advantage of light that literally comes from the darkness itself. It's not that the darkness shows us a greater value in light, like we just explained, but that the darkness, when it gets turned to light, what would that look like? Like an icicle on fire, right? That's something which is dark and seemingly is a resistance to fire. It's the opposite of fire. It's the opposite of warmth and heat. And it's going to light. How did you pull that off? Because you revealed some deep, crazy essence that even the darkness is not just an obstacle to the light. It itself is a revelation of godliness. And on the contrary, it's a revelation of godliness on a much more profound level. That it too is light. That's what we mean. There's an advantage of light from darkness. That's the real meaning of it, the deepest meaning. That when the darkness will show that it's also godliness, its level and its brand of godliness is greater than the whole branch called light. So if we're talking about summer and winter, and the winter's like this dark place, so there's two ways of dealing with the winter. That really all the other months in the winter are there to show us also the power of light, right? On the contrary, they even help us more than the summer because they show us a breed of light that can break through the darkness. That's all the other months. Or there's the winter of Teves, which is actually greater entirely because its job is not to show us how great light is. Its job is to show us that in the darkness itself, there's a greater breed of light from the whole side called the summer, greater than the Shemesh Havaya, right? That the Elokim, the shield, actually contains a revelation of Hashem's essence, which is the highest level. And that's called the goof of Hashem, as it were. It's the essence of God. And how do you get it? From the goof of the Jew, not from his soul. Leave the soul out of it. If you can show me how the goof itself is Elokus, that's what it means that a goof nena min a goof. That the goof of the atzmus, it gets benefit, i.e. can show itself not from the soul work, but from the goof work. Right? And this is what he's saying, that the icicles will light. The Baal Shem Tov showed us that even icicles can light. That's what was a chiddush in Yiddishkeit. Right? No one ever really realized that the tzimtzum itself was not a means to an end, but it is a revelation of God on the highest order. It's a revelation of the essence. Okay, that was a better go at it. You following me? Okay. So, Hem lo shinu es metzios hayosem kerech, right? They did not change from being ice. Eladalku toch kedei hayosem kerech. They burned as they were ice. And the ice itself turned into something shiny. Bekin ben yanenu, and so it is in our situation. Tzrich lafoch as krirus haguf b'chashcho l'kedusha mitzad haguf atzmo. We have to turn the coldness of the body itself and its darkness, that it has this tendency to conceal God. We have to transform it into holiness from the standpoint of the body itself. Meaning what? Not that it should stop its pesky meddling and get out of the way of the soul, which is like a weakening of the goof, but that, on the contrary, what's the difference? Godliness can just be found as much in Gashmias as it can in Ruchnias. And that's kind of the secret of the whole story, that on the contrary, not only can it be found in Gashmias just as much in Ruchnias, but it's actually found in Gashmias even more than in Ruchnias, right? And for various reasons. Why does the Gashmias hold God more than the Ruchnias? Why does the darkness have a higher breed of Elokus than the light? Yeah?
That's what the world is created.
What's that?
The world is created like that, where all the spiritual worlds that come actually called the essence of God. God made it with actual physical.
So why? Why does the physical have like a leg up over spirituality?
Once you could only appreciate the light once you see darkness.
So now you're going back to, I'm glad you said that, because this, excuse me, I'm going to use you as an example of what not to say, but you said the wrong thing. Right? So what you're saying is that you're going to use the darkness to see the benefit of the light.
No,
That's what you said, right? So that's good. That's what we thought until the Baal Shem Tov came and showed us this, that icicles light on fire, which is that darkness is it serves a function, because without it we wouldn't know the true greatness of light. We're saying something different now. And then that itself could have been a reason to create the world, theoretically. Right? Hashem created like a resistance so that light could really shine. That would show us that really what's like paramount here is the Elyonim, the godly spirituality. It's just that if you don't have physicality fighting against your spirituality, you won't have really the meat and potatoes of your spirituality. That's what most people think. What he's saying here is that darkness and coldness and physicality has an intrinsic value, not because it helps us see more light, but because it's higher than light. Now I'm asking you, why is darkness and Gashmias a better material and that reveals God's essence more than light does?
Is that tied together? It's not a thing, so it's one description, so it's more like this, it's more like...
Wait, but isn't it more thingy than spirituality?
Yes.
It's like the most yeshus, right? Why is the most yeshus, the goof, forget the soul, the flesh and bones on your body, why is that a better conduit to reveal God's essence than your soul? It's a peculiar. Who talks like this? Agreed, but why? What does it have going for it that makes it so special?
It's the only thing that's actually similar to God. It's the only thing that actually Yeshua that's actually can show what God is actually like, because any of the revelations are God showing just revelations from himself, his actual essence.
Okay, you're bringing out a point, I think, from Tanya, which is true, which is that the only place that you can say I in all of existence is here on planet Earth, where we feel the eye of, as you said, Yoshua Menachem Mendel, of the Yeshanivra, which is a gross and disgusting and distorted reality, that I could say I, because the reality is Hashem is the only thing there is, but I say I. And then Hashem can say I, because he's the only I that exists. So this strange parallel that I can say I and he can say I means that in some way his I is reflected in my I, even though they're totally opposites. But again, it begs the question as to why that is. You're just saying again the fact that God finds himself most in the lowest world, and the fact that we have a sense of self and ego is sort of similar to the Hashem's, even though ours is distorted and his is true. But the fact that one holds the other is a symbol and a sign that we're actually holding the true I. But the question again is, why does physicality have that going for it?
Be diluted into Kedusha, higher levels of Kedusha.
Physicality can be diluted.
Into higher levels of Kedusha.
But again, it sounds like again you're trying to weaken the physical in order to shine the spiritual, which is a means to an end. And we're saying it's not a means to an end; it's the end itself. Why would Gashmias, the stones of the Beis Hamikdash, in other words, are more significant than the Aaron HaKohen who's in there working it?
You need the physical to do the Veda Hashem.
Why though? Why? Do it in spirituality.
Because again, that thing of I, you need an I to be able to do something for someone else, right? Like, or else then it's God doing it for
Okay.
himself.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna give it a go.
Blinded by the light.
I like it. Say more.
Like it's Etzem versus Gilur. How in a place where there is spirituality, you have like revelation of God. So by definition, God cannot be there himself. But in our world, we don't have this issue.
Very good. Any light has a little bit of a... Actually, the light has an ego problem, believe it or not. We're saying that we have this big ego because we feel self, we feel separate, we feel distant. But the reality is light thinks that it's revealed, that it's actually experiencing godliness. whether you're experiencing light in Atzilus, Bri, or Yetzira, it doesn't bother me, but you're enlightened, right? We just have one of our, some of our students seeking enlightenment, right? You're gonna have the light. So the problem with that is, who do you think you are that you can experience God? God's essence is by definition, as you said, unexperienceable. That's when we talk about the essence versus the revelation. They're like almost necessarily two opposites. If you have a revelation, it's a symbol that you're not carrying the essence, because the essence is defined by something which cannot be revealed. So where can I reveal the essence? Only in a place which has zero revelation. But then I don't have it. No, exactly. You've got nothing. All you got is yourself. You're like totally pushed off from having any clue. But because you're in a medium of Gashmias, which has no shaykhis and yachas with any revelation, therefore it's the perfect and only fitting place where God's essence can actually be revealed, because God is beyond revelation. So if you're going to try and put him in Yetzira or Asiyas or in Atzilus somewhere, because they have revelation there, as you said, blinded by the light. Because they have light, they cannot experience the essence. So it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to have the essence, you can have it, but you can't have any revelation of that. And that's what we mean. You're doing the avoda with the goof. There's no fun in this, right? It's just like pure Kabbalah soul. You're just like recognizing that the Gashmias itself, in and of itself, is another way of dealing with God. Even though there's no Geshmak, there's no light and revelation. It's just that there's a deep, deep sense of understanding that a Jew has, that he would rather forego all revelation, if need be, and have Hashem. And this is why the Jewish people are called Ner Havaya Nishmas Adam. We're called a candle. Also because we flicker and shackle in our davening, but because the flame of the candle is ready to leave the wick. Give me my opportunity, like Rabbi Yeshiva, and I'll die for you, Hashem. Even when you die, you're not going to experience me. I'd rather. A Yid has some deep-seated, strange connection with the essence of God that he's willing to forego any perceived goodness, as long as you can tell him that he's going to be holding on to Hashem. Ana Nasiv Malka. I want the king, even though I get nothing out of it. And this experience is actually a kind of deep-seated geschmack. It's a funny kind of geschmack that you have in actually not having any revelation. And this is like the pleasure that one can have in Kabbalah Soul itself. You can have Kabbalah Soul because you think you're going to become a big Talmid Chacham. You can have Kabbalah Soul because you think you're going to finish Shas. Or you could just have Kabbalah Soul. What's in it for you? My connection with Hashem. That in this moment, even though I feel nothing and I'm like foregoing any intellectual or spiritual pleasures, but that itself is my greatest spiritual pleasure if I'm looking for the essence. Because I know if I do experience a pleasure, I'm dealing with revelations. And I don't want your Gan Eden and I don't want your Olam Haba. Right? This is the Alter Rebbe's famous statement. I only want you alone, which is the idea of the avoda with the goof. So guess what? Teves rolls around. It's like our little window. Now we have only 24 days. It's our little window of opportunity of having no Shemesh Havaya, but this is the avoda. And it's a geschmack. It's darkness for darkness' own sake. And if you feel that little, like, panemius reality of what it is, your icicle will light up. The darkness itself is a godly revelation.
Isn't that sense of satisfaction?
It's a sense of satisfaction in a certain sense.
Moving away from.
It's a certain sense of satisfaction in the sense that just like we're saying that the world of the physicality, it does hold God, right? It's just that it's not the revelations of God. So, but on the contrary, it's Him Himself. So it's that like satisfaction of having Him, even though you're not experiencing Him. If you want to call that light, fine, but it's a different kind of light. It's the real advantage of light that comes from darkness itself. And it's a new breed of light. It's not the kind of light that everybody else is talking about. It's the light of the essence. Tov. I just have a hunch that we're running out of time here. Yeah, 1 minute left. And with this, we will conclude. Nice.